Nyawa Sagano. I'm Leon Polam, the writer, historical researcher, and founder of Let's Drive an Indian Path, the YouTube channel. I also create GPS-triggered audio tours of Indian paths that allows you to drive the Indian paths while driving the modern roads that were built on top of them. One of those tours led to the reburial of ancient Indian remains that I more or less found along the way. In this post, we travel one of the busiest routes for animals and humans over the past 16,000 years. You know it. You know it as the Pennsylvania Turnpike. Come with me, and you'll see that this trail was certainly no walk in the park. It could be quite steep and rocky and wet, and it often wasn't there. Maybe a storm washed it away. Maybe we turned left when we should have turned right. I'll tell you about things that were and are always there. Spirits. If you're interested in the ways of the ancient ones, or the Europeans who thronged here afterwards, fasten your seatbelts. It's a fascinating ride. Oh, if you'd like a free audio tour so you can drive yourself into the past, stay tuned. I'll tell you how to snare a coupon. Let's drive an Indian path. Let's start with a broad perspective of where we're going. If you look at North America long enough, you can start to imagine seeing a turtle shell with legs and a head protruding from it. Traditionally, Native Americans held that their world was the back of a sea turtle. Can't see it? Can't see the turtle? Don't worry, I can't always see it either. I can see that blue gash. That's the route we'll be exploring. It climbs up and down what looks like wrinkles on the turtle's back. A crumpled fender might be a better description. You could also call them mountains. The ever-developing creation myth of science holds that 400 million years ago or so, the North American tectonic plate and a small continent collided. The result has long been the bane of travelers. Those mountains, the Allegheny Mountains, part of the Appalachian Mountains. We're traveling the left end of that blue gash, the Pennsylvania Turnpike. See, Pittsburgh is at the upper left. Got your bearings? Good. Nyawa Sagano. That's Seneca. It means, I am grateful, peace, well-being. That's what you want to say if we encounter any Seneca while walking this trail. The Seneca Nation is just to the north of here. So we could run into some. Nyawa Sagano. That certainly would have been a welcome sentiment on the trail we travel today. It used to be called the Raystown Path. Today, it's the 360-mile Pennsylvania Turnpike. This trail was no walk in the park. It went over multiple rock-cluttered mountains and across dangerous rivers and streams. When you walk paths, just like when you drive roads, you trust that what you're following actually goes someplace. Someone before you has figured it out. The best place to get over that mountain or the best place to cross that river. Sometimes it's animals who leave trails, but you can't always trust them. Often they lead you to dead ends. And trails are never simple. There are innumerable parting of the ways, places where the trail splits. Each way might go to the same place by different routes, or they might eventually go off in very different directions. There were no signs to point the way. For one thing, none of the native tribes had a written language. You'll see many online sites that go on and on and on, quite devotedly, about trees that were pruned and shaped by Indians to point the way along the trail. Trees that are still there for us to find if we know what to look for. Well, don't believe it. The age of those trees indicate that if they were altered by humans, European colonists did it, not ancient people. Tribal cultures did not and do not foster the idea of bending nature to suit man. That's a very European idea. Anyway, a common question on this path throughout the ages was, which way do I go? One route might be a steep or dry route. Another might be more level but maybe wetter. So people who walked this trail, the Raystown path, in colonial days often took guides with them. They didn't want to spend any more days hiking through here than necessary. Or worse yet, they didn't want to end up someplace they didn't want to be. The guide would be someone who claimed to have walked the trail before and knew all its idiosyncrasies. Often, early settlers hired Indians, male or female, to lead the way. Naively, they thought Indians were creatures of the woodland and expected that they all knew their way around. Correspondence, letters from that era, shows that they were astonished when their guide got lost. Modern Shawnee, Lenape, or Seneca, they just roll their eyes when they hear that. They know Indians have no innate GPS systems. They are just as likely as anyone else to get lost. Just like everyone else, they learn their way around. Now, Indian guides did know native languages. They could always ask for directions. Survival skills are learned too. What do you think your first priority should be? Food? Water? Turns out, neither one. Today's survival experts say you can live for about 3 weeks without food. Three weeks. Are you thinking about what you ate for lunch today? Was it enough to satisfy you for 3 weeks? You can last 3 days without anything to drink. However, you won't last 3 hours, if you don't stay warm. So staying warm should be your first priority. You'd be found dead along this trail if your core body temperature dropped below normal for more than 3 hours. And 3 hours isn't very long. So remember, ignore your empty stomach as it complains. Your uncomplaining body core is what requires attention. Indians knew this. They traveled very light. They didn't carry water, and a little trail mix or jerky was the only food they carried. But they always had something to start a fire. It might be a well-crafted drill to spin a stick into ignition. It might be 2 particularly hard rocks to strike together and generate sparks. Later, flint and steel from a European trading post were used. Strike the steel with a hard flint stone, properly sharpened, and tiny bits of steel fly off as glowing sparks. Sparks, of course, don't keep you warm. You need to use them to light something that ignites easily. So Indians carried small amounts of dried, fluffed-up plant fibers. They might get it from bark, maybe a vine, whatever was in the neighborhood that worked. Once they got a fire going, they made a simple lean-to and snuggled into a pad of leaves. They stayed there until the weather broke, the sun rose high enough, or the prospect of nearby water and food drew them out. It helps to keep in mind that tribes traditionally don't think of the cold as something to conquer. As with everything, it was a spirit worthy of respect. If you don't respect it, you're in big trouble. Winter was the time for these semi-nomadic people to stay put, maybe after they traveled a little bit south or moved to a more sheltered place. They watched nature for everything, including weather forecasts. If wind is bringing clouds from the north, for instance, it likely means a blizzard. Don't get caught in it. If the wind is blowing from the east, it'll snow, but not too badly. Thin clouds mean cold air. Don't venture too far. If you see a ring around the moon and it's not snowing, expect rain before the sun rises and sets again. But knowing all that is not nearly enough. All these things have spirits that must be honored. That means giving them gifts. Gift giving, tributes if you will, are an integral part of tribal cultures. It was often misunderstood and resented by those coming from Europe. They saw it as a sort of protection racket. Fork over the goods and you'll be safe. But back to the weather. The cardinal directions, north, south, east, west, they're spirits. So are the sun, the moon, the wind, and the rain, and the snow, all spirits. Understand them and pay tribute to all of them, and you will survive the winter. Now, your common everyday Seneca or Lenape or Shawnee is not expected to know and remember everything about the complexities of spirits. That's what shamans are for. Such people, men or women, maintain constant contact with the spirit realm. They advise clients who come to them with questions, often about dreams. Indians, with forecasting wisdom, get clues from the way animals act. There's little evidence ancient Indians waited for groundhogs to pop out of the ground. However, if they saw woodpeckers sharing a tree or a nest, they knew a bad winter was coming. And they knew to expect a lot of snow if they saw that muskrats dug their holes high up on the banks of rivers. Once winter, which also is a spirit, is in control of the far north, elders look for bright spots on either side of the sun. Those spots are understood to be fire, which the sun has made to warm its ears. That means a severe cold snap is coming very soon. Winter was a good time to spend at home, huddled around a fire and telling tribal stories to the children. Around here, most tribes lived in small wigwams, or in their big cousins' longhouses. Dozens of people could live communally in the longhouses. They were pole frames covered with bark, skins, and turf. Rocks were placed in and around the fire to conduct heat. Almost as important as the fire was body heat, so you made sure to sit or lie close to others. But where did fire come from? Indians figured that out too. In the next post, I tell the story that in recent years has been attributed to the Lenape, or Delaware Indians. But the Lenape think that the crow is a central figure of the story. That sounds more Cherokee to them. Be that as it may, the story is about Rainbow Crow and his beautiful singing voice. What? You never heard of a colorful crow or one with a beautiful voice? Well, be sure to watch the next post. If you'd like to listen to these tales of the past while actually driving the turnpike, I have GPS-triggered audio tours that will allow you to do that. There's a link listed in the post description. Your turnpike trip doesn't have to be boring. It'll be over before you know it, and it's suitable for children too. Just download the app to your cell phone and be on your way. The tours, typically about an hour long, cost $5.99. But if you'd like a free one, I can get you a coupon. Just check out the tours I have at voicemap.me, see which one you might like, and send an email to letsdriveanindianpath@gmail.com and ask me for a coupon for that tour, and I'll send one to you. If you like what you've seen on Let's Drive an Indian Path, the YouTube channel, then please click like and subscribe. I'll be posting every week as I take this trail and many others. Salinoka Kanula, that's Shawnee, for again we will see each other. I certainly hope so.